Alright, so today I would like to talk about the project that I've been working on that I'm calling Trip Tracker. Essentially, what it is a currency converter, but what it allows the user to do is to plan trips to foreign countries, input expenses that they've budgeted for those trips, and then see how much the cost of those is changing in US dollars in real time. So to get started, I just need to log in to the account that I've created for myself. Now you'll see if I put in some information that's not correct, it does send you back and ask you to try again. So I'll go ahead and put the correct password in this time, and then we arrive at our dashboard page. And so as you can see on this dashboard, there are four main sections. Now starting in the upper right, we have My Trips. This could also be called upcoming or ongoing trips. So these are those for which either have not yet been completed or are still in the future. In each trip we can see the name, for example, Cabo Verde, in the top one. We can also see the dates that the trip is planned for, as well as the current exchange rate to US dollars. Now that current exchange rate will show up in red if the most recent rate has changed unfavorably for an American who's planning to exchange their currency, and it'll show up green if that has changed favorably recently. And then if there are more than 3 trips planned, we can also cycle through to see the rest of them as well. So then moving on to past trips, looks just about the same as current trips, but these are just trips for which the end date has been surpassed. Still same thing, cycle through it. The one difference is that if you decide that you want to hide the evidence or just delete a trip off of your list, you can do so. You just click that red X, confirm it by pressing Y, and it gets deleted. And so then moving up to the upper left portion of the page, we have our top destinations. So these would just be taken from all users. These are the destinations that have the most users that have planned trips to them. So we can also click to see all of them here. It does take a second or two to load since it is a fairly large list. But once we have that, we can search for an individual country if we have one in mind, say Iceland or Germany, whatever you'd like. We can also just scroll through the list, and I don't need to go all the way down at this point. That's pretty much it for that page. We can return back to our dashboard. And so now that we're back at our dashboard, I think it might be time to add a new trip to our list. We do need to select a start date first from this calendar selector. We can just say July 8th, doesn't really matter. Also, we need an end date as well. And then we also need a location from this list. Now, as you may have noticed at the previous page, there are 249 in total, so there's a lot to choose from. For the sake of the example, we can just choose Estonia. Once we're satisfied with that, we can go ahead and click Add Trip. And so from this page, we get a little more information about the country on the left. And what I'd like to show here is the ability to add budgeted expenses to your trip. So in the upper right, you just can say a name. It is optional, as well as the cost in the currency of the foreign country. Specify the category. The date is optional, but someone who's a big planner can put stuff in. And we'll see once we put in these expenses, that pie chart is generated. Adding more expenses will update the pie chart, and it does also update on the left side of the screen as well, showing the current cost in euros as well as that current cost in US dollars. And for adding a planned expense, there are 5 categories to choose from, all of which are reflected on this pie chart if there are expenses for that category. So we can just try adding one more expense just to make sure that everything works, and it looks like it does. There is a little more information that's seen on this page, but it's more so important if the trip has been planned a little bit further in the past. So if we just return to our main page, we can take a look at a trip that I put in a few days ago. And so if we check out this trip that I have here for Kiribati, you'll see the page looks very similar to the newly planned trip. It does have some expenses that have already been input, has the same pie chart, obviously reflecting the data for this trip. However, this time we can also select to see this graph for exchange rate over time. On the left side of the graph, we have the exchange rate at the time that the trip was input into the system, and then on the rightmost side, we have the most current exchange rate information. And so we can also click here to see all of the information from that line chart in written form. I fetch the exchange rate information every 3 hours from an external API. That does, in real life, the exchange rate can update every second, but for my purposes, I just chose to do it every 3 hours. And so we can still continue to add more planned expenses to this trip. But lastly, I would just want to point out on the left side of the screen, we have the current cost of those planned expenses in dollars. That's showing up in red because that's higher than what the costs in dollars of those expenses would have been if they were exchanged at the day that the trip was planned. So that's pretty much it. At this point, we can return to the dashboard, and if there's nothing else that we are looking to do, we can just log out.